Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Sunday Chat today has a purpose, suggested unintentionally via a viewer's comment. We'll get to that in a minute, we've got to do all the nonsense first, so we have to do the I'm only joking, but seriously we do have to thank all the people who support the channel by watching the adverts, that's the financial support, watching the videos obviously, doing the thumbs up, subscribing if you're not subscribed. I am going to come and find you one day. Seriously though, if you're not subscribed, it's effortless. Just click on the thingy and do it. Have you done it? I'll check. But an increase in subscribers at a reasonable rate, thumbs up on videos, and don't forget, if you think a video might be of use to one of your friends or, you know, another orchid grower or something like that, by all means share it, you know, however you do that. I don't think I've ever done that, but I'm sure you good people know how to do that sort of thing. But yeah, thanks for all your support. It's greatly appreciated. The other channel, the Roger's Garden and Bonsai channel, is now coming into a period where there will be more videos, simply because we've got things growing in the garden. I've still got things to plant in the garden. You know, there's things going on. There's work to do on the bonsai, although I've missed a couple of opportunities there. There was 4 to repot, and we're down to 2 because 2 have gone past the point where I can repot them, but the other 2 haven't, so we've still got those to do. My back was holding up that's why I missed the opportunity, because of some heavy bags of media that need getting round into a place where they're usable, and they're not at the moment. They're still not. But I'm hoping this coming weekend when Hannah's down, providing we don't forget, we can actually carry those bags between us so that she can pick it up because she's okay at lifting reasonable amounts, and then I can get on the other end and we can carry it between us. But that remains to be seen. And if they don't get potted this year, tough, they'll have to wait. So things going on the other channel. One video that will be on the other channel, which I might do later today, or I might leave it till tomorrow morning, although I think this coming week sounds like it's going to be a bit wet. Mild but wet. That's the consequences this time of year. If it's nice and clear and everything, it tends to be cold. You know, if it's mild, then it tends to be wet. It's the wind direction coming up from the southwest and bringing all the ocean with it and dumping it all on us. There's a sad bit of news. We have not far from here, there is a video on these orchids. The early spider orchid in this country is classed as very rare. Not because there's only a few of them, because where they are, there's hundreds. But where they're found is very, very thin on the ground. And there's a new colony that somehow has become established on the Isle of Wight. That's been wiped out this year, so there won't be any seed. And the reason was we had a storm, and they grow along the coast, and the storm whipped up the salt water into the air and dumped it all over the cliff faces in that really strong wind, and it's burnt the blooms. Luckily, in the place where most of them are, which I might visit, have to be a nice day though, there are loads still to bloom. But yeah, a lot of the blooms that were already out got salt burn basically, and a lot just got blown over and snapped in the really silly strong winds that we had. Yeah, so you know, damage. I remember one year in that area, the person responsible for grazing put the cattle out on that area of the cliff at the wrong time of year, and they just ate all the plants. So a whole year's blooming was lost. Colony, you know, seeding, all that sort of stuff. I mean, the plants weren't lost, they come up again the next year, but yeah, it's when you've got fragile colonies like that. Bad weather, drought, continuous rain, all sorts of things can mess them up. Right, so that's the channel. And again, thanks for the support, it's appreciated. This channel is growing at a rate better than it ever has done, let's put it that way. As a consequence, there are obviously a lot of new subscribers that may not know what to expect. So a brief outline. Once a month we do everything in bud, spike or bloom on the 8th. And it's called that because it's done on the 8th of the month. Unless there's a very good reason why it can't be, in which case it'll either be done the day before or the day after. So that's a regular feature. This is a regular feature, and this was held by request. Not long ago I changed the style of the channel, and in some cases that might be why some of you new people are actually here. I changed the style of my thumbnails to make them more eye-catching, more appealing. I shortened my title to make them more easily scan-read, going down that list of things that YouTube offer you. You're not going to spend ages reading loads of words, are you? You're on to the next one. Yeah? So I had to adjust the channel. But by request of those long-term viewers and everything, this one remains the same. So this is old school, old style. Chatty, in some cases long-winded, round the houses on occasions, and it has my old style start up and ending. So no flashy thumbnail or anything like that. That banner sort of became my brand basically for many, many, many years, and it's been held on the Sunday Chat by request. So that's why this one looks different. And it is always based around a chat about things, normally orchid related, but I do wander off sometimes. And occasionally there'll be a snippet of politics that slips out. That's normally by annoyance rather than anything else, but we don't do it as a matter of course. I do steer away from it. Everybody's got their opinions. Like what this weekend is all about, everybody's got their opinions about that sort of thing, including me. I'll keep them to myself. But a little bit of something that not everybody will agree with, but it was good to see our king on the news just now, going to church. Well, not necessarily where he was going, it was the fact that he was up and about following his cancer prognosis and his treatment and everything. He was prepared to come out and appear in public. That's good stuff. Good on you, mate, as they say. Yes, so that's that lot done. There's no new blooms in here that you haven't seen, because I did a video on them yesterday or the day before. A couple of new blooms. The tree man, I will probably film it for the other channel so they can actually visibly see. But the man who took my tree down was up in that giant oak tree messing about. It might have been yesterday. That's today, Sunday. Yeah, probably yesterday. Might have been the day before, I can't remember. But yeah, he was swinging around in the top of that huge big oak tree, taking stuff down. And I asked him how much he was taking down. He didn't give me a direct answer. But what he has done is taken away the lower branches that were overhanging the house, and in some cases in the wind banging the roof. So he's cleared all that off. So the lower branches that hang over the property are now probably a couple of meters above the roof. That's going to leave a gap between the roof and where the sun might come through. So we might get a bit more sun as a consequence of that. The other stuff he did was removing dead branches and just thinning out a bit, so the tree's a little thinner than it was before. But if you didn't know what it looked like before, you wouldn't know he'd been up there, so he hasn't taken a lot off. But you know, any more light in the garden will be appreciated. Same again if any of it hits the grow room. The shadow effect is visible now. Like I said, the sun goes around that side of the house because this is north. Behind me is north, basically. So the sun has to get up above the roof of the house before it can shine in the garden, and it has to get quite high in the sky before it can start hitting this roof. And the shadow in the garden earlier in the year was right up on the shrubbery at the bottom. It's now here. So nearly on the end of this little path here. It's to there now. So in the not too distant future, it's going to start catching the roof. Now last year I put shade netting up. At the sun's highest point, that shadow reaches this central point on the roof. So half of the roof is in the sunshine, and that's midday sun. It's sun at its strongest. So I did put some shade netting up last year. I may or may not bother this year, because I'm not sure it's necessary. By shuffling the plants round that need the highest light on the top shelves, I might get away with not having to do it. Because this is, you know, this isn't clear glass, this is, whatever you call it, you can't see through it. So we might get away with not doing the shade netting. Lights are all finished now, I said that last week, they're not coming on again. And the next big project in here is to rearrange all the shelving. Now, it would be nice to have some help with that. That help is called Hannah, my daughter, and she is down this coming weekend, but I'm not sure. I'm picking her up on the Friday this time because we've got our trip to the Mathers Foundation on Saturday, so we're out all day Saturday, so nothing is going to get done Saturday, which would leave Sunday, and Sunday's only, it's not a full day because I have to take her home in, you know, in time to sort herself out ready for work the next day, considering she starts work at 4 o'clock in the morning, so she doesn't want to get to bed too late. So, you know, we end up not having a full day where we could be doing work, but we shall see. We could do some, make a start or do something. Be a lot easier with 2 people. You know, when you've got 20 plants to move, 10 each is going to get it done a lot quicker than one person doing 20, isn't it? So that I might make a start on that. But it has got to be planned. All I know definitely is that the watering is moving from here to behind the camera in the dark corner, which is of far less use for plants. So why not put me in the dark corner, yeah? And get the plants out on this nice bright edge. So that's the first thing to do, would be get the shelves that are in that corner over to here and get my workstation and everything associated with watering over in that corner. That would do for one session, just that. Just move those 2 shelves, well, it'll be 3 actually, and get that lot over there. We shall see. Right, today's chat, inadvertently suggested by a viewer, totally unintentionally. I should have found out who it was, shouldn't I, before I started. Perhaps I'll do a pop-up and embarrass the person. Basically, we're going to discuss moving house, in quotes, with orchids. So, the things to think of and what to expect. Yeah? This could mean moving from a greenhouse to a room in your house. It could mean moving from a room in your house to a conservatory. It could mean moving from a conservatory to a greenhouse. You're just moving your orchids from a place where they've been growing for an amount of time to another place. Yeah? And that could involve changing countries or states in the States. It could involve a total change of environment, and this is what we're really getting down to. The place is not that relevant. It's the environment that is contained within it and the sort of things that are going to change. Because even in a house, no 2 rooms are the same. Yeah? You've got possibly different size windows, different aspects, face north, face south. Does the sun come in the window? No. You know, all these things have an effect on the environment. So we need to look at the actual variables, and it's all of them. Every single environmental variable that can affect orchids and their growth and their well-being and their ability to bloom has to be taken on board. So I would suggest that before you move one single thing, you analyse what you've currently got. Know your platform. Yeah? So what are we talking about then? get a good feel for your light levels. Is it directional light? In other words, does it come in a window? That's directional light. Yeah? This is not directional light. This is all round light. Comes in from above. Well, not so much that side, there's a brick wall there, and these two sides. A greenhouse normally is all round light. Yeah? But a room in a house very rarely is. That's directional light. How much of that have you got? Are you using artificial lights as a consequence of not having enough natural light coming in? Have you adjusted your orchid collection to suit low light levels? And if you have, where are you moving them to? Are you moving them to somewhere that's an awful lot brighter? They might not like it. It's the changes that can cause the problems. So think about your light, and then depending on where you're moving and how far and whether you're heading north or heading south, all that sort of thing. What about your day length? What about your quality of light? Not only where it comes from, how long it's available, yeah, and how strong it is. The light in Spain is totally different to the light in the UK. Yeah? Day lengths, longer. They don't get as short in the winter. So light, very important, because a change of lighting can stop an orchid dead in its tracks. Whereas it was doing quite well, it can suddenly stop growing. And that's because it's suddenly got far too much light in one go, or it's gone from what was reasonable light into darkness. Relatively speaking, it might not look dark to your eyes because your eyes will adjust, but relatively. So think about your light. That's relatively obvious. Yeah. The next thing really is humidity. Now this can be adjusted. This can be played with, as many do. Now if you're growing in the home under normal circumstances, but there are places in the world where humidity in the home is really high because it's even higher outside. Yeah? You live in those tropical places with monsoon rainstorms and stuff. You can't get away from it. It's just humid and hot wherever you are. So unless you've got special aircon blasting away all day long, it's going to be hot and steamy, isn't it? So, but yeah. Think about humidity. In the home, under normal circumstances, it will be at its lowest. So there again, there's a thing to think about. If you're moving from somewhere in your house to your shiny new greenhouse, the chances are your humidity is going to go up depending on what's on the floor. Yeah? And I would suggest, if you're having a greenhouse built or building it yourself, I would suggest personally that you have flooring and don't have it soil. Don't leave it open as it was. Don't enclose the natural world, because you'll have all the bugs, the slugs, the snails and everything. So I personally would suggest pavers to walk on, and possibly gravel or stone chippings or something like that for the rest. Just cover up the soil. And then you have the ability to change the humidity with a watering can or a hose pipe. Because if you've got stone chippings or something like that and paving, you pour water over that, you'll raise your humidity dramatically. And bear in mind, your new shiny greenhouse, you might have to do that several times a day. Then you've got to stop and think about, in your shiny new greenhouse, does the sun hit the glass? Because if it does, your temperature's going to whoosh and your humidity's going to drop like a stone. You will have to cater for that where you didn't have to do anything about it in your home. It's these changes I'm trying to get people's attention onto. What you perhaps didn't do before that you now have to do. You've taken away the choice. And the alternative going the other way. All that extra work you had to do because you were growing in a greenhouse, and now you've got them in the house, and not only don't you have to do it, you can't. You can't go round your lounge with a watering can you? You'd certainly upset the other half and your cat will leave home. But yeah, so humidity. Think about what you've currently got, and talking of cats, think about what you've currently got and what it's going to change to. Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? If it goes up dramatically, it might be too humid for the temperature range, which is what I had here. That cost me quite a lot of orchids. Yeah, my mindset was geared up to how it used to be and maintaining 70–80% humidity. Yeah, well that's fine if you've got 25 degrees. It's not fine at 15 degrees, and a lot of plants were lost to rot. Humidity was too high. Come on then, Trouble. I think before you go out, you should come and say hello. Oof, God, you're getting heavy. There. This is Mojo, for you people new to the channel. He's a nuisance. He's very old, coming up to 20 now, and he's almost deaf. So he doesn't, I talk to him, he doesn't hear me. Either that or he just takes no notice, one or the other. But he's an old fella now, aren't you? Yeah, there was 2 of them, but his brother died around this time last year actually. Anyway, we've still got this one, and he makes a lot of noise, and I think part of that is because he can't hear himself anymore. Anyway, he makes a noise when he wants to go out. You going out? Yes or no? The decision making process is quite painful sometimes. Come on, you going out? No? Well, you'll have to walk up to the door again in a minute, won't you? Anyway, that's Mojo the cat. AK Fluffy Cat, that's his nickname. Right, where did we get to? We've just done humidity. But humidity, wherever you read in the scrolls, in the books, you know, all that sort of stuff, on a lot of YouTube videos, how important humidity is for orchids. Yeah, it can be too high. It's relative to temperature, yeah? It's also relative to the type of orchids you're growing. There are some orchids will never be happy unless they've got high humidity at the temperatures for those types of orchids. And there are others that are just not as fussed. This is why your store-bought mass-produced Phalaenopsis do so well in the house and other orchids might not, because they've had that fussiness bred out of them. They do not need high humidity anymore. They did, and the species probably still do. So think about your humidity. What is it going to change, and which way is it going to go? And are you going to need to compensate? If you're coming out of a greenhouse that always had high humidity and high light and possibly high temperatures because the sun was getting on the glass, and you're going to bring it into the home, you're taking it from what I would call a volatile environment with temperature range quite high and a consequential humidity change that's quite high. And the orchids have had to acclimatise to that. You bring them into the home, you've gone into a stable atmosphere, and it might not be right for quite a lot of your orchids, and they'll object. So the one thing I would say that you can expect, you're going to move house and change your environment quite dramatically, within reason, and it may not be true for some people, but you can expect to lose some plants. I mean, I know quite a few people that have moved and they've all lost plants, and that includes me. Oh, that was a difficult decision, wasn't it? Nuisance. Right, so that's humidity. Now, relative is temperature. Are you going from high temperatures that you bought orchids for to much lower temperatures that doesn't suit them? No names mentioned, and that's why a fair few of mine went. They were warmer growers, and I got away with it in the other place because it faced south. It was a conservatory, not as big as this, and and certainly not as high. But in the winter time, if the sun came out, I had 24, 25 degrees during the day. I don't get that here because I don't get the sun. So I'm lucky to get 20, 21 during the winter here. And that's a considerable drop. Yeah? Nighttime in the winter isn't really any different, because around the other place I maintained 15, and I do here. It's the daytime temperatures. So think about your temperature change if there's going to be one. Again, if you're moving from a relatively stable environment in your home to something that's more volatile, like a conservatory or a greenhouse, possibly even worse, you know those limitations, know where the highs and the lows are going to be, and accommodate. And that goes with the light too. Orchids grown in the home and less with artificial lights are never going to have the same light level that you get in a greenhouse. Okay, well, mine are sat in the window, still not as going to be as good as in a greenhouse when it's coming in from all sides and above. And such a great strength in light, you will have to shade or you'll burn your leaves on your orchids. So that's another thing you've got to think about. If you're going from inside to outside in any shape or form, you will probably need shading. And you never have before. So again, something else to think about. And the other way round, orchids that need high light to bloom possibly are never going to bloom again when they come in your house. Unless you get artificial light on them, or you really have got a good bright window. Yeah. So think about your change in your temperature dynamics, highs and lows. My temperature dynamics here now they've gone down a peg. So whereas my highs and my winter temperature were there, now my highs down here and my winter temperature the same. But my highs have been lost. That's cost me quite a few orchids. And there are now some orchid types that I just won't ever buy again because they're not going to grow well here. I used to have a lot of cattleyas. Now, some of those got lost for a totally different reason, but irrespective, they would not have been happy here. Now, high light I can do here by just having plants on a top shelf, and they get good all-round light. There's very little difference between the top shelf in here and actually sitting on that shelf the other side of the glass outside. Yeah, so that's bright light. It's almost outside light in here, except in that dark corner, which we're going to deal with. So think about your temperature range that goes with your light level and your humidity. These are all related. These are not independent items, they're related. Yeah. The higher your temperatures, the more humidity you will need, and the more, bearing in mind what's probably generating those higher temperatures, the old current bun up in the sky, you might need to shade because you've got too much light coming into your unit, whatever it is. So these are all things that are related. And think about which type of plants are going to stay the same, which ones could do better, and which ones are probably going to fail. Now, when I got here, I didn't appreciate the change, and it took me quite a long time. And as a consequence, I lost plants. Now, if I'd known in advance that was going to happen, those plants could have gone to other people and not been lost. And that would be much better than losing them. Yeah? I didn't get that opportunity in a lot of cases. I moved in the middle of winter. Now, I didn't chill the plants. It was a mild day when we moved the plants around. Hannah and I did it together. We packed them all up and loaded them up in the car and brought them round here and put them in here. Prior to doing that, we'd already set up the heater and everything in here ready to receive them. Yeah, so they moved from a conservatory to another conservatory in the middle of winter. It all sounds good, doesn't it? Well, it wasn't. It didn't work as well as I expected, and a lot of that was because with no sun, I didn't get my daytime temperatures. I lost them, they were gone. And there's no way I can afford the amount of electricity it would take during the winter to raise my daytime temperatures to where they were around the other place. Net result, lost plants. However, some of the plants that never did very well around the other place, the cooler growers, suddenly started growing better around here, and still are. So I've just moved the range of orchids that I grow. Cotyledons didn't do very well around the other place. They should do okay here, so I've got a few in. Got more than them, more of those in. We didn't have cymbidiums around the other place, apart from the one that I look after for Hannah. Now that's nothing to do with the change in temperature, but indirectly it is, because it's cooler in here in the winter, they're happier than they would have been around the other place. And they have to come in because it's too cold outside, but they will go out again in the summer. That'll give me some space, won't it? I'm surrounded by them. You coming in? Thank you. There's a silver collection by the door. All I do is open and shut the door for him. Never get a chance to sit down for long, because normally I'm right round the other side of my workstation there on the on the laptop, and I have to walk all round there, all the way back again, and 2 minutes later he's at the door and wants to come back in again. Anyway, so yes, you may have to change the type of orchids you grew to a new set. You can do that gradually. And if you have a set of orchids that are predictably not going to do well where you're moving to, perhaps think about passing them on to somebody else who's got a suitable environment for those type of orchids, whatever they are. Yeah. If you had loads of cool growers, the Masdevallias, Draculas, all those sorts of things, some of the cool growing dendrobiums and stuff, and they've all done really well for you, and you're suddenly going to move somewhere where it's just hotter, and you can almost predict they're just not going to do as well. Well, think about doing some swapsies perhaps with some other people, If you're going to be moving to a warmer place, do you know somebody who's got some Cattleyas and the warmer growing oncidiums and dendrobiums, that might like some cooler ones perhaps. They probably won't, because if they're growing them, then that's probably suited to their temperature ranges. But just think about passing on orchids to other people that you are predictably not going to do well with the change of the environment. But sometimes it's difficult to know what your new environment is actually going to be, because I didn't really know how different this was going to be. I knew the other one inside out. I've been growing there for a long, long time, and I knew what worked well and how to play that environment, how to use shading, all that sort of stuff. So it's a totally different environment there. It got so hot in the summer, I had double layers of shade netting blocking out an awful lot of light, and a huge big extractor fan near the roof and a huge big inlet fan on the floor to change the air, to get some cooler air in, which lost me all of my humidity, and I had to have a huge hydrofogger to replace it. So I had an awful lot of gadgetry going on to maintain an environment that was suitable for the orchids. Round here, none of that. The only air change that happens in here is because that door's open a fair bit of the time, so it gets some lounge air in here and some conservatory air in there. And this door gets open and closed now and again. There is a window that can be opened here, but if you open a window in somewhere like this, you just as well put a big sign on it saying, "Bugs, this way to the orchids," because that's what will happen. They'll be coming in by the coachload. Amazes me how they know what's going on the other side of a window, but they do. They'll be in, you'll have all the flipping aphids and begrudge getting thrips because they're out there. So ventilation is to be taken with a pinch of salt. It will let the bugs in. Strangely enough, it doesn't let them out. They only come one way in, and then you've got to deal with them. So we've done light, that's intensity, day length, directional or non-directional, Is it too intense for the orchids you grow in your new place? Are you going to have shading where you didn't have before? Can you do without shading when you had it before? So it depends which way you're going. If you're going from inside to outside, then suddenly you've got bright light and sunshine to deal with. If you're coming from that to the inside, you've got the opposite. It's like going into a cupboard and shutting the door. It's dark. Trust me, the home is dark compared with outside. And then think about your temperatures. What's going to be your new maximum and minimum? Are you going to have to play with that? You know, if you're going to a greenhouse and you live in the UK, there aren't many orchids that are going to stay in there and survive through the winter without artificial heating. Have you got power in your new greenhouse? Can you afford to run a heater to keep your plants happy? That's getting more and more difficult. And obviously tucked in amongst the light, the temperature range and all that sort of stuff is the humidity. And some orchids will put up with naturally low humidity. I mean, in my lounge at the moment it's probably about 55, maybe down as low as 50, I don't know. There's some orchids that would be okay with that. They might be happier with 60%. Now out here it hovers around 60-65%, which at the temperatures I've got is just about right. You know, I didn't know that when I moved in. I kept bumping the humidity up, thinking it needed to be 75. Yeah? Well, it didn't. And it doesn't. Depends on your temperature. Now what? You've only just been out. What can you possibly need to do out there now that you didn't do before? He gets periods like this that can last an hour where he just keeps wanting to go in and out and in and out, and then eventually he'll just flake out somewhere and go back to sleep, which is what he does most of the time anyway. So there we go. The other thing to bear in mind is the physical move. Make sure in advance you've got some good units, whatever you want to get, to house your orchids that you can carry and the bottom's not going to fall out, so that you can pack them up, not damage them, and transport them from one place to another. If that's going to be a long way and it's going to take a long time, you'll need to think of the environment inside your vehicle. Yeah? Most vehicles nowadays have got aircon. So if the sun's belting down, you can keep your plants a little bit cooler than they might have been otherwise. But watch out for sun through glass in a car journey. Yeah, I mean, I've taken plants to a show that have been sat on the back seat, and I've had to pull over and move the container that they're in because I hadn't stopped and thought about, while I'm driving along this motorway for half an hour, 40 minutes, the sun's there. And it's coming straight in on that back seat, straight on the orchids. So I had to move them up the other end of the seat, out of the sun. So think about your transport and make sure that's all in hand beforehand. And quite honestly, those collapsible plastic trays are excellent. They fold down flat and then the sides and the back lift up. They've got a handle on each end. You know, they've got sides, well, variable side heights, variable sizes. They're lightweight, they stack. And before you go out spending all your pennies, ask around. Has anybody got some you can borrow? You know, if not, start collecting cardboard boxes. And make sure, if you're going to use cardboard boxes, you don't water your plants the day before. And then put them in the cardboard box. Load them in your car. In the meantime, your orchid dribbles all over the bottom of the cardboard box, and when you get the other end, you pick it up, lift it out of the car, and the bottom falls out. Just think stuff through, basically. It is a big deal though. I mean, Insa moved house, apparently he moved about 600 metres up the road. He lost a third of his plants. Over a third, I believe. Yeah? And he's still uncertain why, because he went from one room in a house to another room in a house. So, you know, I would say expect some losses, but it depends on what you've got, what types of orchids you've got, how many, you know. If you've got half a dozen Phalaenopsis, then you're going to load them into one tray, put them on the back seat of the car, get them out the other end, put them back on a windowsill similar to where you had them before, and they probably won't even notice the change. However, a collection is a different thing altogether. If you think round the other place, everywhere, hanging from the ceiling, was these things. These are shelves off of the shelf units that hadn't been in use. And I used to hang these up from the ceiling and put all my mounted orchids on these. Brilliant, yeah? Well, most of my orchids on mounts died, so I don't need these anymore. So, again, I didn't realise that this place would not be suitable for my mounted orchids. And I lost some that are irreplaceable. I'll never get them again. So, yeah, be prepared for some losses. And by thinking through all of the variables and planning ahead, you should be able to keep that to an absolute bare minimum. My lack of planning on the difference between there and here was what messed me up. Not the actual move, that was all planned. Orchids were packed up nicely, transported without chilling them down, chose a mild day. They came out of the car straight in. They weren't sat outside or sat in the car for any length of time. It's a 20-minute drive from where I was to where I am now, so they weren't in the car long. Warmed the car up before we loaded it. All this was thought through. What wasn't thought through, because it was unknown, was the real difference in this place compared with what I had before in the middle of winter. Yeah, so anyway, if you've got that on the cards and it's something you're going to have to do, I'm just going to say good luck. But the more you think it through, the more you plan and the more you anticipate, the less of a hassle it will be. And if you've got to do it, just good luck. And hopefully it goes a bit better than some other people I know. We shall see. Right, so that's it for today. So I was just racking my brains seeing if I could think of a joke, but I can't. Not in a jokey mood really anyway. Yes, so that's your Sunday chat, and as I say, people who are new to the channel, if you've made it this far, then absolutely well done. It will vary how long people stay with a long video like this. Some people will be off 3 minutes into the video, that's enough of that, I'm off. And others hang around. Those that have been around on the channel a long time know what this Sunday chat is like, and some people even plan for it. You know, they get their morning cup of coffee and their biscuits and they settle down in their comfy chair or whatever, knowing that it's going to be a long one and a chatty one. Some people watch it and never see it because they listen to it while they're doing other things. It's a chatty one. There isn't much to see, is there? It's only me and I'm not exactly pretty. I'm sure some people's channels, that's why certain people watch it. It doesn't apply to this one. No, you have to put up with this. Anyway, I will see you next time. Thanks for dropping by. Thanks for the support for the channel in whatever form it is. And don't forget, if you're not subscribed, give it a go. It doesn't hurt and it don't cost anything. Do the old thumbs up unless you dislike the video. So if you didn't dislike it, by definition you must have liked it. So click the old thumbs up, and if you think it might be useful for somebody else, then by all means share it. There's no restrictions on that. If it's going public on YouTube, it's available to share. So, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.